Inject this right into my veins. The British government firmly hit the self-destruct button last night. This is the Labour government, so-called, though it needs to be prosecuted under the Trades Description Act. Admittedly, that's pretty low down my list of things I'd prosecute them for. Now, last night, 10 Downing Street, the centre of prime ministerial power, decided to brief that Wes Streeting, the Uber Blairite health secretary, is plotting to overthrow Sir Keir Starmer, our beloved national leader, who has, within less than a year and a half of winning the election, achieved the worst ratings of any British Prime Minister since records began. In doing so, this crew of geniuses, master tacticians, strategists, simply managed to boost Wes Streeting, which I actually think was their plan all along. We'll come on to that. As well as damaging even more an already fatally wounded administration. We're going to hear from Streeting. Lucky old us, eh? But first of all, here's a quote from anonymous ministers cheerfully knifing Starmer in the back. It's terrible. Starmer, is hated out there. It's worse than it got to Corbyn. I don't see how this is sustainable until May, one minister said. Now, interesting, they mention Jeremy Corbyn there, who, to be fair, lives rent-free in the heads of many of them long after he stopped becoming leader. Given Starmer hasn't faced a relentless public campaign of destruction against him by the media, or indeed the Parliamentary Labour Party, though the latter may now change for Starmer. Starmer had everything given to him. He couldn't have had an easier ride. The Tories destroyed themselves. He conquered his party in the most duplicitous way, but established an authoritarian reign of terror, and it all collapsed. We'll come on to that. I'd also note Corbyn's Labour got 40% of the vote in 2017 with 12.9 million votes, while Starmer's Labour got 33.7% of the vote at the last election with 9.7 million votes. That's more than 3 million votes fewer, even though the population's bigger. In fact, they got fewer votes than Corbyn's Labour achieved when it was defeated very badly in 2019 and got a similar voting share. Now, Labour won, yes. People go, well, Labour won and Corbyn didn't, under Starmer. Yeah, I get that. It's because reform split the right of centre vote. But let's not pretend that Keir Starmer was ever popular. He wasn't. Now, let's carry on with the BBC. One senior Labour MP told us, they say, it's all very well to say wait for the locals, but that's my activist base I'm sending into the gunfire. I can't lose all my councillors. Another Labour source said, the list of reasons for people to move after the budget are growing by the day. If Wes is brave and moves, he may well be rewarded by being Prime Minister by Christmas. Brave Sir Wes. Now, just some basic context here. As I wrote in my column for The Guardian, Labour didn't have a coherent narrative or argument at the last general election, which is why, despite being up against the most disastrous government in our democratic history and being handed the election on a platter, all nicely garnished for them, then you got a third of the vote on the lowest turnout of eligible voters since the universal franchise. But they did have one clear pledge, and that was not to increase national insurance, income tax, or VAT. They made this promise over and over again, and crucially, they put it in their manifesto. This was a classic of the genre from this crew. They think they're masterful strategists, and they thought to themselves, we're so clever, we'll shut down all attacks by doing this. It was an insanely stupid pledge to make in the economic circumstances that exist in this country. Clearly, they should be hiking income tax on the well-off for a start. Obviously, they should be doing wealth taxes. But they made a solemn, unequivocal pledge about those three taxes. In the coming budget, in 2 weeks' time, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, plans to rip up that pledge and hike income tax. The context here is that the government is already hated. The other context is faith in our democracy and trust in our politicians is in crisis. When they abandon that pledge, the government really will go into meltdown. Now, here's more on the number 10 briefings from Bloomberg's Alex Wickham. Keir Starmer's allies have accused Wes Streeting of plotting to oust him from office, warning that any attempt to do so would trigger market shock as supporters of Streeting go to war number 10. The extraordinary developments in a series of furious briefings to media outlets tonight signalled Downing Street is increasingly concerned the PM may face a leadership challenge. Cabinet unity is fractured, possibly to the point of no return between Starmer and Streeting. Now, in terms of that market shock, did you notice that? Wickham goes on to say that a supporter of Starmer says tonight that they conducted a recent exercise with investors where they were told that any alternative to Starmer and Rachel Reeves would result in a significant rise in gilt yields, meaning higher government borrowing costs. I would like to note that the the individual, the outside person who came in to give that briefing, is a former Labour minister, just worth noting. That would be ruinous, they say, for the public finances and plunge the UK into an economic crisis, a clear indication that Number 10 is seriously concerned about a leadership plot. This is really disturbing stuff. The government is saying here that there can't be any change in leadership because the bond markets won't like it. This is a Labour government telling Labour MPs that the bond traders must decide who runs the government. But the message that this sends to the British people is what really matters here. This is an age of fury justified at the elites, the establishment. Unfortunately, Nigel Farage's Reform UK has benefited from a lot of that, though we can now see signs of Zach Polanski's Greens benefiting too, thankfully. The British people are being told that the real masses of this country are bond traders. They're being told that whoever is in office, the same people are always in power. And they're right. It gets worse. As the likes of the BBC reports, Number 10 is going around saying that overthrowing Starmer would jeopardise the good relationship the Prime Minister has established with President Trump. So we're now not just saying that our Prime Minister should be decided by bond traders, but by a foreign leader, the far-right authoritarian demagogue destroying democracy in the United States. I just want to be clear about something. I am absolutely sure that Wes Streeting is plotting to take over from Keir Starmer. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I know Wes Streeting enough to know that he craves being Prime Minister more than anything. And there's enough evidence to suggest he has an operation in place to prepare for the removal of Starmer after a flashpoint, possibly the budget, possibly next May's elections when Labour faces being battered. As the New Statesman's George Eaton reports, parliamentary supporters of Wes Streeting have independently canvassed MPs on whether they would prefer him or Angela Rayner as leader. Independently canvassed. Give me a break. According to the Times newspaper, senior government figures said they had been told Streeting had 50 front benchers willing to step down if the budget was badly received and the Prime Minister failed to resign. Starmer's allies, meanwhile, declared the Prime Minister would fight a leadership challenge. Who is behind all this briefing? Well, that really is a tough one, isn't it? Well, we can't be sure, can we? But the overwhelming odds are that it is Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's chief of staff, who was the guy who ran the Labour leadership campaign back in 2020, which was designed to dupe the Labour membership, with Starmer pretending to be left-wing and then abandoning his pledges, a consistent theme, of course, of his leadership. But here's the curious thing. Morgan McSweeney did not see Keir Starmer as the man who would lead Labour into victory. That's not why he ran his leadership campaign. The plan of those around him, was that Starmer would do the dirty work. He'd be used to lie to the left and then destroy the left. But then he'd lose the election, but make the party safe for someone like Wes Streeting to take over. Indeed, McSweeney and Streeting are close. But then that plan went wrong, if you like, because the Tory government imploded. So all of a sudden, Labour had a chance, a massive chance. In fact, they couldn't miss this massive wide open net because the Tories had collapsed. So Starmer became Prime Minister, not because McSweeney thought he would, but because the stopgap became the inevitable Prime Minister because of circumstance. Now, I'd also note briefings were made by Labour aides to a book written by the Times journalists Patrick Maguire and Gabriel Pogrund earlier this year, including that Starmer thought he was driving the train, but in fact they put him in front of the driverless district light railway. In other words, that the Prime Minister was a useful idiot, a frontman for their faction. It is very clear that McSweeney was behind some of those briefings. So why then would McSweeney so desperately come to the rescue of a clearly finito Starmer, whom he never wanted as Prime Minister, never planned to be the Prime Minister, whilst trashing Wes Streeting, the man he really did want to be Prime Minister? Why would he do this the evening before Wes Streeting was due to go on a massive round of TV interviews? And commentators here have suggested that's because it forces Streeting to express his loyalty to the Prime Minister and therefore destroys his plot. But in actual fact, this whole story has bolstered Streeting, enabling him to go around studios presenting himself as a better alternative to Starmer, while also pretending to be above the fray. Well, you don't need to be a conspiracy theorist here to join the dots and suggest that maybe, just maybe, what Morgan McSweeney was really trying to do here was bolster Wes Streeting, because that's the net result of what's happened. I'd also know Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester mayor, who's positioned himself on the soft left, is on manoeuvres. No one, obviously, is in denial about that. McSweeney would rather hack his own legs off than let Burnham become leader of the Labour Party. But he undoubtedly feels like it's a race against time, because Burnham isn't in Parliament right now. But a by-election in Greater Manchester could change all of that. So surely it's better to get Wes Streeting in sooner rather than later from his perspective. It makes sense, does it not? Listen to this from Labour's Barry Gardiner, one of the few Labour MPs who are actually any good remaining.
OK. How popular is Wes Streeting amongst the Parliamentary Labour Party?
I love all my colleagues.
Wow.
Wow. New nickname,
Can we...
Spot on Barry. Spot on Barry.
Okay.
What do you say?
Can I answer it seriously?
Well, yes, please,
okay.
because I do feel I want to interpret that for anyone out there who didn't quite understand that moment. But go ahead.
But quite honestly, an argument between Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer is an argument between Narcissus and his reflection. It's, this is...
What do you say,
This is a
Barry?
man in his shadow. What we actually need is we need the leaders of our party to set clear direction, to listen to the people in the country, as Arlene says, to set a clear direction, a programme, and show how they're going to deliver it.
OK, let me be devil's advocate for one moment.
Not to constantly go backwards and forward.
An argument between Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer is an argument between Narcissus and his reflection. Oof, ouch, ish, aish, ooh. That burned. Now, Streeting went around the TV studios and was clearly, in the words of that quite annoying McDonald's advert, loving it. And he wanted to prove that he had the popular touch by making an absolutely hilarious joke. Oh, he's such a card, Wes. About the hit TV show Celebrity Traitors over and over again.
I mean, I'm laughing because I just think this is ridiculous. No, the Prime Minister is not fighting for his job this morning. In fact, the last time I saw the Prime Minister on Monday evening with a small group of cabinet colleagues was to talk about how we're going to fight the scourge of violence against women and girls. So I think this is daft, to be honest. In fact, I think someone in Downing Street has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and this is just about the most appalling attack on a faithful I've seen since Joe Marler was banished in the final. Whoever's been briefing this has been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and this is just about the worst attack on a faithful I've seen since Joe Marler was kicked out and banished in the final.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have been watching too much Celebrity Traitors, and what's happened to me overnight is the most unjustified attack on a faithful since Joe Marler was banished in the final.
Yeah, good one. Now, Wes was asked on ITV if he'd run for leader either after the budget or next week's elections when Labour do badly. Let's hear that clip.
The coming budget goes down like a bag of cold sick. And if Labour performs dreadfully in the May local elections, would you run for leader?
Well, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that neither of those things happen. This is going to be a challenging budget, by the way. And one of the things we know about the Chancellor is that she will make unpopular decisions if she thinks they are right for the country. And she's got a really hard, I think the hardest job in government, actually. We can see the state of the public finances. We know we're not out of the woods on the economy. And sometimes when you're in that job in particular, you have to take the brickbats. You have to know the public might be angry with you for a while so that, a few years down the line, you can say, I know you didn't like it at the time, but this is why I did it. These are the results we can see.
Firstly, the look on his face there is hilariously instructive. You can hear his inner monologue. Keep a straight face, keep a straight face, keep a straight face. Now, he refused to rule that out because Wes Streeting is plotting to become leader of the Labour Party and plotting to become Prime Minister. That's what's happening here, guys. It's been briefed that he's been positioning himself to the left with that election to call the membership bollocks. Don't believe it for a second. If you believe that, you are a gullible idiot. Sorry to be so blunt, but I have to be blunt occasionally. I just want to end with this, though. A message to Sir Keir Starmer. Your premiership is doomed. The question is not if, it is when. Your place in history is assured, but not for the reasons that you always craved. You wanted to be Prime Minister not to transform the country, not to improve lives, but for its own sake. You wanted power because of what it meant for you, not for the British people, which is why you relished its trappings and ended up guzzling up freebies from rich donors. There were prime ministers in the past who became monstrously unpopular, like Margaret Thatcher, but even she has her zealous cheerleaders and supporters who will bat for her relentlessly because she had a vision. She had a project for the country, one which was tragically, devastatingly successful. You, on the other hand, became leader of the Labour Party through deception and lies. You conned for Labour membership by pretending you were something you are not. You made a pact with the most odious people in the Labour Party who have no vision, nothing that makes their heart beat faster other than purging the left and defining themselves against the left. You, all the way through your leadership of the Labour Party, have offered little else other than deception, dishonesty, duplicity. You're the human rights lawyer who ended up defending and arming a genocide and mass arresting elderly people holding placards opposing that genocide. You led a government, a Labour government, which kicked elderly people, which kicked disabled people. And what's worse, you did it thinking you would win plaudits for it because you thought it played to the worst instincts of the British people. You went from lauding the benefits of immigration to raiding the rhetoric and policies of Nigel Farage, even the language of Enoch Powell. And with no vision for a country in crisis, no principles, no ambition except for yourself, you ended up the most loathed Prime Minister in British history. You will have no defenders, no cheerleaders when you are ousted from number 10, which is coming. When you are deposed, you will be universally traduced as a failure. History will damn you. And you know what, Sir Keir? You brought this all on yourself, and you have no one else to blame. Please like and subscribe. Leave your thoughts and your comments. Help us take on the dire media environment. Patreon.com/TonyJones84. You make all of this possible. Popular. Oh, wow. Write my own reviews there. You make all of this possible. So leave your comments, like, subscribe, share the video. I'll speak to you in a bit.